Welcome to Swift Coaches Academy, a podcast dedicated to bringing health and wellness professionals the uncensored truth behind what it really takes to succeed in the health industry with me, your host, Zenia Wood. As an accredited exercise physiologist and business owner for almost a decade, I'm on a mission to transform the lives of ambitious health professionals like you who want more and are ready to take action to create incredible impact in your careers and unlock financial freedom in your business. So join me as I speak candidly with industry leaders about the struggles and successes from within the trenches through thought-provoking conversations.
Today, Zenia's conversation is with Calisthenics expert and Zenia's previous cali coach, Julian Waller. Today, we dive into how Julian got started in the cali world and specifics around how to program calisthenics in your exercise and rehab program for better results to you and your clients. This one's great for exercise coaches and health professionals.
Julian, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great, thank you. Bodyweight dad.
The bodyweight dad.
How are you going?
Good. Just as I said, just juggling two kids, work, being present, trying not to get divorced. The whole juggle. I've got all the balls in the air, you know. I'm not getting divorced, by the way.
And then running a couple businesses online, offline, on the side.
Yeah, all of the lines.
All of the lines, on the line, off the line. Love that. I wanted to bring you on to our podcast because I think that you have an incredible skill set in the cali space, and having been my coach in the past for that as well, I learned a fuck ton from you.
Got you that muscle up.
Yeah, actually, my first muscle up, for everyone listening, was attributable from the man on the other side of this conversation. And that was a pretty fucking cool achievement for me to unlock. And I'm sure you've done that for a ton of other people. Let's rewind. How did you get into calisthenics in the first place? I don't even think I know this story.
Well, it's an interesting story. I was thinking about this before when I was having lunch. I was like, how did I get into this? And then the backstory, I used to be a plumber. I finished school, didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I sort of didn't do that well at school because I wasn't that interested in it. It just wasn't my thing. I don't think I had the right teachers or the right sort of mentors, I guess, until a bit later in life. And so I finished school can I swear on this podcast?
I think I've already done it twice. So
yeah.
you have my permission.
I fucked up school, to put it bluntly. Finished, and I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm working at Kmart. And then my mum was like, I got your interview for a plumbing apprenticeship. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll give that a crack. And then I ended up becoming a plumber, which was great. I absolutely loved it. And did that for like over 10 years. But sort of through that, in my mid-20s, I was starting to get into gym and fitness and all that kind of thing. And my wife now, who was girlfriend then, got into like MLM, like she started doing Herbalife. And so I just went along to a few of the things and all that jazz. And then I met this French guy who was doing muscle ups and stuff. And I was like, fuck, that guy's fit as, like, he's shredded. And he's like able to do this crazy shit on the pull-up bars. And he lived down at Burleigh at the time. He's back in France now. And I was like, man, I want to learn. That's cool. Like, that's a fitness thing I could get behind. Cause it's like, you know, feats of strength sort of thing. And so he was doing the Herbalife thing as well. So I sort of met him and just like trained with him for a while. Eventually got out of the Herbalife thing. And yeah, sort of stayed with the passion for calisthenics. That sort of built that passion for it. And then in the Herbalife mix and sort of out of that, I started just organizing these workouts on a Saturday morning at a couple of parks. And just like, I wasn't really a qualified PT yet, but I was like, we're just meeting up and we're just going to do some reps and sets at the bars. And just, it got to like 30, 40 people on like a Wednesday afternoon and a Saturday morning. And I had like good music on. We're all having a good time. It was a really good jam. And I was like, fuck, I reckon I can make a career out of this, because this is like making me happy seeing the results that people are getting. And I wasn't really coaching them. I was just like, let's just do some pull-ups and push-ups and dips and squats and that kind of thing. And then I did my certs, and then was really unhappy plumbing. Just wasn't feeling like I was making a difference in anyone's lives. And I was like, I can make an impact. Like, I feel I can really help people, and I'm just not doing that now. And so then we found out we're having our first son, and I was training at just a snap around the corner from my house, and I just went to work after a shit day at work one day. I went in and I was like, hey, you guys looking for a PT? I'm like, got my certs. Fucking sick of my job. They're like, yeah, we'll do an interview now. Did an interview. And they're like, cool, we got the job. I was like, fuck, okay. And this is like October or like September, and we're having a baby in April. And I'm like, got a pretty well paying, secure job. I went home to my wife. I was like, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to become a PT.
You're like, cheers to any parental leave that I had.
Yeah. And so I ended up getting my long service paid out or whatever, plumbing. And so I was like, I've got a runway here. Like, I've got some cash in the bank, bit of a runway. I've got a date that I need to be like, making money. And so that's how I was really focused on the calisthenics thing, which is a bit of my niche. And so, quit my job, started at Snap. I worked at F45 for like, I think a week, and I hated that. And then I worked at FitStop for a while I was building clients, and then just went into Snap full time and just built that up over the last few years. And then, here I am, and started the Bodyweight Dad as well.
I love that. And in between that as well, you were also at what used to be Bodyweight Brisbane, which was how we met. We were speaking off air. Did you want to run us through that scenario?
That was an interesting time. I love the community there. That's sort of in the midst of like, I think I hadn't quite finished plumbing yet when I first started at Bodyweight Brisbane. That. And I was like on the way out. And then, I sort of was doing must have been the Wednesday. Was it Wednesday night flow there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wednesday night flow. And then you came when Tom was in England. He said,
who's the owner of Bodyweight Brisbane, by the way. And just to also clarify, flow means the like freestyle version of, you see, like, you can probably explain it more, but like they do cool gymnastics, right? Shit. Yeah. It's like, gymnastics for the ghetto.
It's like ghetto gymnastics. It's like skateboarding for like gymnastics. I don't know. It's like, I find it's like freestyle.
It's like
tricks.
Dance kind of involved with a fuck ton of like muscle up, step, ladder, progression things.
Requires
and flips
a fair bit of strength to pull off some of the moves. Pretty impressive.
Like gymnastics gone rogue.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, and that was sort of on
gymnastics.
that was like on the up of that sort of like scene, I guess. Well, in Australia, it was massive in Europe, I think, already. And that's where the French guy learned. He was sort of doing he did a 360, and I was like, man, that's cool. I want to learn how to do a 360. And then no one I could see on Instagram or anywhere in Australia was doing that kind of stuff. And so I was like, this is cool. And then it sort of started happening more and more here. And then when I met Tom, and he was like, can you coach the flow class? And I just had coached myself, like the tricks and stuff like that. And I just watched heaps of guys in Europe doing it. And I sort of had to unpack, which is kind of cool, like really good for coaching, like unpack like the end result of their tricks and then build it into progressions and to be able to teach the everyday person. I'm like, okay, you need this strength, you need this base skill. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to, the you call it the dragon or the rollover, the cali roll or the 360 muscle up. And that was really cool for when I just started coaching, to look at those really complicated moves where I couldn't find anywhere on the internet. They were like breaking it down into like step by step, and I had to like unpack it.
Does GMB do it?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Not that I know of, like with the flow stuff. They do some really cool like handstands and all that stuff, but now there's a lot more on YouTube. You can find heaps of stuff, but at that point, that was like 2019. It was nothing. And that's when Tom went to England owner. I had to, because there's leads coming in, and I called the people, and then I called you and I said, come down for a trial, and that's how we met.
I think I saw like an ad online somewhere, or maybe like there was some people in Brisbane who I knew who were attending it, and I was like, oh, I want to do something else. I kind of have these 2-year stints of different exercise pathways I go down. So it was like powerlifting for a while, bodybuilding for a while, never competing in anything until Ninja Warrior, which, to be fair, my calisthenics gave me a real good leg up when I was on national TV doing my Ninja Warrior. That was something else, but topic for another time maybe. But I think the muscle ups and the upper body strength and just the movement skills that I couldn't learn from anyone who, I guess, I went into it going, okay, yeah, sure. And I remember we actually had these conversations in terms of when I said, Julian, I want you to coach me. You were like, oh, but I don't know as much about anatomy as you do and physiology. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't do a fucking muscle up. Like, I'm not here for you to tell me which rotator cuff is firing at what timing period. Just teach me how to do what you can do.
I remember I was so intimidated by you. I was like, this chick is so knowledgeable. She's been to university. I'm like, I'm a fucking plumber that's like taught myself all this shit. And I'm like, she's going to hit me up for like the science behind my methods. And I'm like, I literally have like used it as like like how I think about plumbing, and then thought about it as like the way I think about some of the movements, and created it myself. So I was like, when I first met you, I was super intimidated. I was like, I had you on this like pedestal of knowledge. But, it's just different, right? It's different stuff.
Absolutely. And I learned a fuck ton from being there in terms of, and some stuff that we still use with our clients today in terms of integrating calisthenics or gymnastic style movements. And I think that, integrating that into exercise prescription is something that can be incredibly valuable, whether you're, a PT or a rehab professional. And for me, one thing that I really admire with gymnastics and calisthenics is kind of in the same basket as that is the shoulder health that you see, like people, things that bug me in the industry that we get taught is like, oh, don't do dips below 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And you're like, why? Who like, do you ever bring your elbow back into extension beyond that? Like, it just makes no sense. And all of this dogma around like, don't do this movement or that's bad for you.
All these sort of just pull-ups like this.
Like half rep movements. Yeah. And I just sort of saw the cali stuff and what the gymnastics were doing and had to sort of wipe my slate clean of what I thought I knew or what, people had said or told me is what is good and bad, and get rid of that stigma behind good, bad, and just do. And because I'm a doer, I'm a kinesthetic learner, I found a lot in that. And then I realized like, hey, like this is the most functional thing I believe for shoulder health, like full 360 rotation under loads. Like if you can do that, in my opinion, your shoulders are super solid. Gymnasts have like massive shoulders and they're really strong. It's like, how can that be bad if we're strengthening through your body weight range and you're able to, produce those loads? So what are your thoughts on
the amount of force that you can produce through like, doing like a muscle up 360 and stuff and landing and like into, crazy positions. And I just built it up over time. Obviously, I didn't just start jumping off a bar. But like, I took you through like the progressions of like, okay, we're going to start with a swing, making sure like you're swinging all right. And then we're going to start with some like the dragon flag where you sort of like rotate around without like really letting go of the bar, just one hand at a time, and just sort of progress slowly, making sure obviously you're in a position. You're not just going to start throwing yourself into these huge swings without progressing to it, where I think a lot of people go wrong. They just rock up and go, I've not done any prior strengths and I'm just going to jump into these positions. Probably not ideal, but you want to make sure you obviously have a base level of strength and no issues before you start. But yeah, I think it's amazing. Like I get a lot of people at the gym who have started training with me or whatever, and they've done dips, to that range you're mentioning, or I go, you can bench, I don't know, 100 kilos, whatever it is. And I'm like, let's just hold yourself on some gymnastic rings, just a hold. That's it. Straight arms. And they can't do it. Like the stability is not there. Like all these kind of things. You're just like, you're only focusing on like numbers with that, like with your bench or whatever. You're not focusing on like how much more stability you're going to have through your shoulders, how much more abs are you going to build just by holding yourself on the rings, let alone doing, a dip, for instance. And all those things, pull-ups and ring muscle-ups, like that's an incredible range of motion for your shoulders to go through, and I think it's super important to show people that and show that's what's possible, because when you show people that, it's like a whole nother level. I think that's why maybe I have a good retention rate with my business, because it's like when you're teaching a skill like that, it's like obviously a long journey, but it's way more, I don't know, for me, like inspiring to coach than just like, okay, we're going to do bench press again this week and we're going to do some tricep extensions on the ring, on the fucking cable machine and blah, blah, blah. I get it's like monotonous for me. It gets quite boring. Whereas teaching like a skill or something like that is really cool.
Yeah, I actually found that as well. And that's kind of why I was saying bodybuilding, powerlifting, like did rock climbing for a while, then went into calisthenics. And for me, it's learning and did sprint training, like did a whole lot of ollie lifting, did a whole lot of learning of new different skill acquisition, because I think that absolutely you're right. Unless there's this big goal or vision, or you have a drive, or especially in lieu of most of us coaches train when no one else is training. So you're training by yourself. So that's another thing that makes it hard. And I think finding a skill, and lifting weights absolutely is a skill.
Yeah, 100%.
And definitely not detracting from that. I just think that it's so different, and there's much more in terms of the levels, in terms of something calisthenics wise to be able to progress. And it's fucking cool that like you can do it from almost anywhere with a set of bars. Like even at home, there's a lot of body weight movements that you can do. Did you blow up in COVID, like in a good way, because you were doing body weight stuff? What happened for you?
Everyone was like, fuck COVID. I was like, man, COVID's the best thing that ever happened. It was sick because that was also like, we just had Edward and I was like, fuck, I haven't really, like my business was just getting going because I just started before COVID in the gym. I was like, fuck, I've got like all these clients. I've just struggled. Like I was just hustling to get people in the door sort of thing. And I just sort of got to a point where I was like happy with where the business was. And it's like, cool, the gym's shutting. I was like, fuck. And I was like, part of me was like, man, call your old boss and just get back on the tools and just like hang up the boots. This is not the time to like take the risk. And the other part of me was like, this is my best thing. Like I went and bought a set of gymnastic rings, some bands, a few other things. And there's a park near my house. And I have this like immense gratitude when I go past this park on my afternoon walk now. So there's this beautiful tree that's there. And I hung my rings from that tree. I have my little Milwaukee like tradie radio there with just like R&B going in the mornings, Arvos in the daytime. And because it's on the main walking track along the river, like foot traffic was insane because everyone was in lockdown. They were all doing outdoor walks. And it was just me with the beats and, like I said, a gymnastic rings. And so many people stopped. Like, my gym's closed. Like, I really want to keep training. Can you train me with these rings? I was like, yeah, no worries. And it's like my session, I just got booked out in the park. And I was like, fuck, I'm not paying any rent. This is incredible.
Is that how you transitioned to online? Did you sort of take them and then move them across, or was that different?
Yeah, to some people. And what I struggled with online was like finding, I guess, my niche, because I felt like obviously body weight's a niche. I was overthinking it maybe. And I was like, I want to go one step further. And that's why I was like, maybe I want to do calisthenics for dads. And I think that's where I sort of ended up with like really pushing that niche. But I have a bunch of other online clients that just do like general cali and stuff like that. But yeah, that's when I started going, okay, well, I've got trainer eyes, I've got all the tools, I've got the videos and everything like that. I'm going to start offering on top of sessions in the park, the online coaching as well.
Nice. I love that. And so if, let's say there's some coaches listening who are like, I really haven't done much with calisthenics. I understand it's body weight movements, muscle ups and stuff. Like in terms of integrating it into programming, if you were to say, let's go a basic or a beginner, if someone's wanting to learn some basic moves or to integrate it to improve their strength or joint health, what would you be prescribing someone to get them started, and what sort of positions or strengths do they need to hit?
Hey, super quick, wanted to interrupt and let you know that we have another business webinar coming up. This time we're talking about all things game changers that 6x'd, yes, you heard right, 600% increased my business in 18 months. We have 7 different game-changing strategies that I personally use, and I want to give these to you. We will be doing this on the 17th of August, which is a Thursday. If you are interested in that, jump into the show notes now and register your spot. See you there.
I think it'd be valuable for the coach to try as well. That would be a great thing, so they can see and feel it for themselves and go, okay, well, this, and get a feel of like, you know, doing some stuff on the rings to get a grasp of like, okay, this is pretty fucking difficult. You're not just going to throw someone here and hope for the best. I reckon get the coach to give it a go as well. I think that's super important, so they learn and feel that. But I start people off with like super basic things like ring rows, ring push-ups. It's just like you can regress it really easily with where the angle of the rings are hanging from, and how high they're hanging from, because obviously if they're higher, then the stability of the instability is more on the rings. And so like instead of having, say, push-ups in their program, they might add, you know, ring push-up to the lower level and then slowly progress up, add the instability of the rings. You get like the really nice chest contraction at the end of it. And I feel everyone I've taken from like doing like seated rows to bodyweight rows, or, you know, push-ups to ring push-ups, or dips to ring dips, have come back and said, holy shit, like the activation or the sort of DOMs I've got from doing this compared to what I've done is why I've never felt something like this before. Like people who are even experienced be like, oh my God, my chest has never been this sore before after doing ring push-ups, like just a basic ring push-up. So I think adding in...
Sorry, I was going to say, do you think that that's maybe due to novelty or like difference in stimulus, or do you see people who've, I guess, transitioned maybe from doing other very similar stuff? And like, is it, I guess what I'm asking is it DOMs for their first week or two, or is it more Once you adjust to it, it's fine. But it's just like that first thing. I think that's a cool sort of moment for people when they're like, oh, I feel it different. You know, I feel something different. Or I feel it like, oh, that was cool. I feel like that was a big burn yesterday. And so I think that sort of turns a light bulb in the head. Like, this is different. It's really challenging. And as soon as they start doing the push-ups, even at a low level, like I got like 65-year-old women doing the ring push-ups now, and just at a lower level, and they really enjoy like this is really difficult for stability. Obviously I'm not just throwing them on there, work them up to it. And so, yeah, building like the basic move, just replicate, say, a push-up with the ring push-up, you know, a seated row with the ring row, and then you can elevate your feet on the ring row, and then doing a regressed ring chin-up with your feet on the ground first, so you can use your feet as resistance, and then say with feet on the ground or toes on the ground for your ring dips, just doing negatives, and then trying to jump back up into an isometric hold at the top. Things like that, just real basic ones that aren't super risky. I would build into the programming, and it's quite easy to replicate what you're currently doing and just add some of those in, you know, just sprinkle a bit of spices on the top. Great for some variety and variation for people who have maybe gotten a little bored of the gym or wanting to improve particularly their stability as well as get strong, and make them feel something a little bit different, and not just try and add weights to the bars. Because I know that a lot of people are kind of get to a point where they're like, yeah, I'm not going to ego lift anymore. Like, I'm here for longevity and health. And, you know, you see that in the 30, 40, 50 plus year olds primarily, who are like done with looking like shredded 24/7. And they're just like, I'd like to, you know, play with my kids and feel strong enough to throw them up and down.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's perfect for that, because I do have a lot of like the dads that are, you know, used to play footy or whatever, had injuries previously, and they're like, I don't want to bench fucking 200 kilos anymore. I want to be around, not hurt myself, and just build some real good bodyweight strength. And I think that's something that's super inspiring to work towards. And then they can still work towards like a ring muscle up, stuff like that down the track, but they don't have to add hundreds of kilos around, and they can do it at home, you know, with their kids, or if they travel for work, you can pack your rings in a bag, literally hanging from a tree. That's what I do. And you can get an awesome workout in anywhere, you know?
Yeah. I think integrating it, even if gym or weights is something that, you know, people like to do, I think it's a really great tool to add to the toolkit. The skill that you learn, the skill acquisition from that, and what you said before about like coaches doing it first, that's why I did it, because I was like, I want to learn more tools for my toolkit, so that even if I take one thing away from, you know, 2 years of cali training, I think I did it for much longer than that and still sort of integrate it, but to be able to then go and teach something slightly differently, you know, like learn hollow body hold positions and how to stabilize, and then also take it back to clients, and they're pumped that you're learning new shit, and they're like, maybe I want to do a muscle up, and they get pumped and inspired by you. I remember when I did my first ring muscle up, I think I was at the gym, and like everyone in the gym like stopped to watch me do it and was like cheering me on, and I was like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. So
yeah, it's such a good feeling, eh?
Yeah, and it's just a cool thing to be able to inspire and then support other people in that as well. And we've used a lot actually of the positions or the holds or the exercises that you've given me personally in terms of some of our shoulder rehab stuff. So awesome. For us, that's been a really cool thing, because obviously we have the capacity to use rehab with exercise, being exercise physiologists. And the cool thing that I see is that it doesn't have to be limited to, you know, a fucking TheraBand or even, you know, a cable or weights in the gym. I think for me, I now look at shoulder health a lot more like gymnast being I don't want to say the pinnacle, but close to like where we're aiming for with shoulder health. And if someone can't get, into the bottom position of a ring dip, or they can't hold on a bar for a minute, and certain standards and things that I think you learn through calisthenics, and the appreciation for the stability as well as the massive amounts of strength and mobility you need. I think it's a massive all-encompassing activity, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, coaching with you was so fun, like getting that muscle up when you did it at the gym. It was like, that really challenged me as well. I was like, fuck, we've got to get this happening. I was like, got to get a muscle up, That was so awesome, inspiring when you did it.
Thank you.
And the journey along the way.
It was like, I think on and off, it was like 2 years, I think, maybe a bit under. I definitely got my ring muscle up first. I don't know if you find this, but I find that girls can get ring muscle ups easier, typically because of their shoulder mobility.
Yeah,
versus
and
guys
you don't have to pull
strong
around the bar.
Yeah.
So I guess it's easier when you've done, if you've got like the pull-up machine at the gym, if there's the gap in the middle, you can sort of get it a bit easy because you don't have to pull yourself around the bar. That's obviously cheating, but like the rings, you don't have to go as far. And then girls, particularly like I know Adriana, she does, I think, 5 or 7 ring muscle ups. She's really strong with that. And it's just like really cool to see. And I've got a few girls now that are working towards their ring muscle up. But I find the rings definitely slightly easier to achieve before the bar. The bar just requires a bit more, slightly different movement, but a bit more strength as well.
Yeah. And so that's why I find also women find ring muscle ups easier, because if you are a little bit not as strong as some of the men can kind of almost, if they're strong enough, they can throw themselves up. Whereas I think the technique is a harder thing to learn. Like I've taught guys how to do ring muscle ups now, because they can like do it on a bar. And I'm like, if you can do it on a bar, you can absolutely do it on a ring. Give me 5 minutes. I taught like one of the new PTs in like 10 minutes. I was like, bro, just do this and this. So there's another one you can add to your list of muscle up completed pseudo through me.
Oh, that's epic. Yeah, it's cool to see. Yeah, I had a guy come do his first ring muscle up a couple of weeks ago. And I've known him since he was a kid, and he had a really bad motorbike accident and had nearly lost his leg and all this kind of stuff. So he's been through a bit of shit. And, now we've sort of got his strength back, and he's feeling good seeing him. And then he did it. He's like, holy shit, man. Like, I fucking never thought I'd be able to do this. Like, it's just like, it was just a really cool moment where you're just like, oh yeah, people, it's like, I don't know, I'm not taking away from weightlifting, don't get me wrong, but I know people are like, holy fuck, I just did a 100 kilo bench. That's awesome. That's incredible. Whatever number you chase. But I feel like that feeling of unlocking your skill, it's like doing a kickflip. I remember when I did a kickflip on a skateboard for the first time, I was just like, my brain's going to explode. I was just like, oh, I just did it. It's been like months of, the work towards it. It's so cool.
And
then you're like, there you go. No, then you finish, and then it's like, then I'm like, cool. All right, the next step, we're doing a front lever muscle up. There's like limitless potentials of like, you get it to that skill, and then it's like, cool, here's the next step.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Have you? I mean, you don't work in the rehab sector, but have you seen Cali integrated into any sort of rehab stuff, or any sort of things that you utilize that maybe someone down the line who's recovered and you're like, okay, now let's take them into performance? Any sort of, outside of like shoulder health, anything else that you've worked on with people?
Not particularly with rehab. Like, I do a lot of, I guess, gen pop stuff, so I don't do a whole lot of rehab.
Oh.
Yeah, work with gen pop. So I haven't had a lot of experience with that. I'm not in the facility that sort of, I guess, does a lot of stuff like yourself. But I've had the physio that I work closely with. I'm pretty sure with his stuff that he does separate rehab to me, but he's done a bit of calisthenics and he's utilized some of the stuff I've shown him, similar to you, for his clients. But I haven't had a lot of hands-on experience with it, previous to people who've had, injuries 10, 15 years ago. But yeah, I do, as I said, a lot of gen pop stuff.
Do you find that they potentially have certain limitations? Like, is shoulder mobility something that you find people with previous injuries, it's like, okay, cool, like you're functional now, but like they're more restricted and they take a bit longer to achieve some of these movements?
Yeah, some people have had issues just like getting into a hang, so they've still got a little bit of pain. And we just slowly progress, the hang from either rings, because you've got the ability to rotate your hand to the point where you're not getting any shoulder impingement, stuff like that. And especially the rings have helped with that, getting people to hang who have had a little bit of niggles in the shoulder, getting overhead. The rings I found really good because you can rotate to find a point that doesn't give them the pain and then slowly work through that. The bar, I find people sometimes get a bit of wrist issues with like bar chin-ups, palm facing you. And so the rings are really good because you can find a position that doesn't get them in any pain or, any issues there. So I use the rings a lot for that kind of stuff. But yeah, people who've never hung before, I've got a guy at the gym, he's in his 50s and he's never done any pull-ups, or he's actually done lat pull downs, but he's done the classic no lockout lat pull downs. So now we've just built into actually doing a dead hang. You get quite a decent lat pull down for his 3/4 rep range. But but going from that to hanging and then going to pull-ups has been quite a journey, because it's that the range that he's just never accessed before. So it's been cool to see.
And I would assume that once he gets that hang and that initiation of the movement, he's probably fucking strong to pull up from that 3/4 halfway range, right?
Yeah.
But that initiation's probably going to kill him to try and do that.
Yeah, you see that a lot with people who do super heavy lat pull downs that don't lock out at the top or go all the way to the top, and then they go to do a pull up, and it's that initiation. They just haven't ever trained it or practiced it. But once they get past that point, then they've got the rest to do it. But yeah, it's interesting. The relationship isn't definitely linear between the two. You can't just go from a lat pull down machine straight to do pull ups if you haven't done them 100%.
Yeah, and what was I going to say on that? I love the full range stuff, and I think I've started to, I've been doing this for years, include full range of motion. Started back when I was young. I've been incorporating a lot of full range or end range of motion stuff. I was actually doing some research for our anatomy mastery 8-week accelerator, or 8-module accelerator it is now. So looking into range of motion and what's better, and should we train at long muscle lengths or short muscle lengths?
Yeah.
That wasn't even meant to be a pitch or a plug or anything. You can find it if you want to DM me, but it was more.
I'm going to DM you. Let me DM you.
Julian's in my inbox now. No, but it was more about looking at, should we train at long lever lengths or shorter or mid range? And it was actually really interesting that they found that you get training at long muscle length, so say a long lunge, knee over toe, or a full range of motion thing. But when I say long muscle length, let's say you're doing a bicep curl, you don't do it from standing and just curl, you do it from an inclined position so that you're in shoulder extension. So the muscle is in a lengthened position, and then you shorten from there.
That's actually how I prescribe all my bicep curls, by the way.
Well, you're nailing it. According to the research, they've found that you get the same amount of delayed onset muscle soreness as a regular bicep curl, but with increased hypertrophy. So you're not getting any more soreness, which is great because it means that you can go again sooner and you don't feel as fucked. But you can recruit, or you have the capacity to not recruit, but you get more out of it because the muscle is at a longer length. And it made me really sort of sit and reflect and go, okay, well, how would I do this with different movements? And looking at things like dips for our triceps as well, and going, okay, dips are cool because they stretch out the chest into its lengthened position. So if you want to do more chest work, I was like, dips is great because it's long muscle length at that bottom position. But then I was thinking for the tricep, I'm like, okay, but your tricep does shoulder extension and you're not in shoulder flexion. So doing an overhead tricep cable extension is actually going to be better, at least for the triceps that cross the shoulder joint.
The overhead tricep ring extensions are amazing.
Yeah. And then you also get the benefit of, same with most of the shit you do with cali, your core stability and just the functional, if we're going to use that word in its appropriate terminology, functional core work where it's actually integrated into something that has a purpose outside of
The reason I did the incline bicep curls, I didn't actually know that, so that's amazing to know. But I do it because a lot of people, when they do their bicep curls standing, they like just roll their shoulders in, and this sort of just takes any cheating out of it. When you're in that incline position, you have to lock out, lay there, and then actually open up to the chest. And they're like, oh yeah, my chest feels really good after doing those incline bicep curls. So I get a lot of compliments saying that, oh, that was way better to how I usually do it. But usually they're like hunched over doing these ones.
Same with the tricep push downs. I see people doing that like straight in front of them with the cable, and I'm like, do an overhead. Like, what are you doing? So I'm constantly picking people up being like, have you tried it this way? So I'm that annoying person at the gym that like watches people and I can't not say anything.
Yeah, I try not to, but then I end up definitely saying stuff.
But especially if you're a trainer at that gym, like I think that's great to be like, bro, just by the way. And then if they want to train with you, then awesome, that's great. If not, they're like, good bloke.
Yeah, I tried that thing now. That was awesome, man. Thank you. Like, cool. And then I got a couple of people, I tried that thing. That really helped. I wouldn't mind doing some coaching because that was different to how I've done it before. Probably learned some stuff off,
Yeah, absolutely. I find that is a huge way. Like if you work in a gym, that is what got me from, I think I got like 25 initial consults booked in my first week that I walked into a gym. I'd been working for only a year in like a private practice space. And then I walked in and I was like, well, fuck, now I got to make it work. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm going to talk to every single human until they book an initial consult with me so that I can show them how much value I can give and just give people advice. So
yeah, it's a great way to do just building rapport, building relationships. I bloody love small talk. So I'm all like, if I don't have a client, I'm always talking to people, I'm just that annoying guy in the gym walking around. Hey, how you going? What are you doing today?
Show me a program. Let me help you. I love exercise. No, but I think that's the way to do it. Absolutely. Look, I don't want to take up too much more of your time today, but we have a somewhat tradition on the back end of all of our podcasts, which is to give people either one or two actionable take homes, because I'm all about people taking action, because I believe action gets results. What do you reckon if someone, in terms of calisthenics, on their own personal journey, or maybe as a coach, what do you think would be a great take home for them to start getting involved in this or start integrating it with their clients?
Number one, buy a set of gymnastic rings if you don't have some. Number two, I would just work on the basic movements and get a feel for the rings and the stability you're going to need. The ring rows, get into some ring push-ups, try and do some isometric ring holds and then some knee raises or some hanging knee raises. Just do a simple thing like that. And it's going to, just doing those alone will make a big difference in your life. I guarantee it. And it's super actionable. You can, as I said, get a set of rings and hang from the tree just outside or from your gym. And if you're a coach, then just start playing around with the rings so you know what it feels like, so you can start prescribing some of these regressions to your clients. And it's really easy to progress and regress it as a coach. It looks complicated when you just see them hanging there, look quite intimidating, but they're not too hard to use. So I think, you can definitely implement it in your coaching. And I think it'll be great for your coaching business.
Awesome. I love that. And so if people maybe have more questions about calisthenics or want you to help them because maybe they're a coach or a dad or whatever, and they are like, fuck yeah, I want to do this so that I can be better for me and for my clients, where can they reach out to you?
Find me on Instagram, Julian_Waller, and I'll be
WALLER with another underscore, right?
Yeah, with the second underscore.
Cool.
And then the Bodyweight Dad stuff's on there. If you're a dad and you want to get shredded from home using gymnastic rings, I have that on there. It's a monthly subscription with a community of other dads that are getting it. So that's just up and running now. So yeah, it's been great.
That's sick. And clearly I'm not a dad. So if you're not a dad either,
that's fine
Julian,
as well.
Julian works with a shitload of different clientele. Yeah. So
it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a dad. I'm just pushing the dad thing at the moment.
Dad life, dad body weight.
In the trenches,
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Alrighty. Till next time. Thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate this. Absolutely. We should go to a session down at the old stomping ground at the tree. I want to meet this infamous tree with the beak.
I'll send you a photo. It's a beautiful tree.
Yeah, please do. Alrighty. We might even see if we can add that somewhere in the show notes.
All right, sounds good.
All right. See you, Jules.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Before you go today, I wanted to remind you about our business webinar on the 7 biggest game changers that 6x'd my business in 18 months that I am giving for you to jump in live. This is happening on the 17th of August. All the details that you need to register are in the show notes. Click on that now so that you can secure your spot, and see you there. Did you find something valuable in this episode? If so, I'd like to ask a tiny favor. If you have 30 seconds now, I'd love you to follow or share the podcast. That way, we can continue to bring you more real, raw, and uncensored stories from industry leaders. We also love hearing from you and what you loved about every episode. The best way to reach out is to DM me personally on Instagram @SwiftCoachesAcademy. Until next time, and in whatever you do, move swiftly.